This is the House of Lords. It's meant to be full of the brightest and the best our country has to offer. People with records of extraordinary public service who can contribute to the sober work of devising and revising the legislation that touches on all our lives. Now, meet Matthew Elliott. He's being given a peerage by Liz Truss in her resignation honours list. She only served as Prime Minister for 49 days, but now she's giving out a coveted honour for every 4 days she spent in Downing Street, including to this guy. So who is he? Well, Matthew Elliott is one of the founders of a network of secretly funded right-wing lobbying organisations clustered in and around Tufton Street in Westminster. He was a leading figure in the group Conservative Friends of Russia. Here he is visiting the Russian Parliament in Moscow in 2012, a trip organised by a Russian spy. Elliott was also the chief executive of Vote Leave, the official pro-Brexit campaign in the referendum. The Electoral Commission found that Elliott's campaign, quote, broke the electoral rules set out by Parliament to ensure fairness, confidence and legitimacy at an electoral event. Serious offences such as these undermine public confidence in our system.
Good morning, Mr. Elliott. So the Electoral Commission seem to think that you're guilty of on four fronts. Why don't you want to say anything about that?
Mr. Elliott claims the Electoral Commission leapt to conclusions and should have interviewed him personally. What is certain is that a man whose campaign broke the law on electoral spending rules created by Parliament to protect our democracy will now have a seat for life in that same Parliament. And he's being given that seat by a woman who was famously outlasted by a lettuce. Truss is also giving a seat in the Lords to this woman, Ruth Porter. She's another member of the Tufton Street network. Porter is the former communications director of the Institute of Economic Affairs, a lobbying organisation funded by tobacco companies. She was central to devising the disastrous mini-budget that crashed the economy and hiked mortgage rates. But now she gets to vote on legislation for the rest of her life. And so does this man, John Moynihan. He also helped devise that mini-budget. He is a Conservative Party donor and was chairman of Truss's campaign to become Tory leader. Truss is putting him in the Lords as well. But Truss isn't the only former Prime Minister using a resignation honours list to give cronies a lifetime seat in this building. This is 31-year-old Ross Kempsell. He used to be a political journalist for Talk Radio. In 2019, he interviewed the then Prime Minister, Boris Johnson. The friendly exchange went viral when Johnson waxed lyrical about his hobby of painting cardboard boxes to look like red buses.
I make buses.
You make models of buses?
I make models of buses.
Kempsell was friends with Johnson's soon-to-be wife, Carrie. And soon enough, the Prime Minister asked Kempsell to become a special advisor at 10 Downing Street. Then, in 2022, Boris Johnson resigned in disgrace. He then drew up his resignation honours list, one of the most controversial of modern times. It soon emerged that Kempsell was on that list. Johnson was going to make him a member of this place, the House of Lords. He was giving his young friend and reported tennis partner a seat in Parliament and the right to claim £323 tax-free per day of attendance for the rest of his life. So what did Kempsell do next? Since being inaugurated as Baron Kempsell of Letchworth, he's spoken in the Lord's Chamber a grand total of 0 times. But Kempsell has been busy. We looked at his register of interest, and it turns out he's set up one company offering business intelligence, another offering executive education, and relaunched his firm, Hyannis Strategy, to provide services in communications, media, management advice and journalism. And Hyannis Strategy already has 3 clients. The right-wing think tank, Policy Exchange, which is part of the Tufton Street network, the controversial TV channel GB News, where Kempsell is a contributor, and the office of Boris Johnson. So, a disgraced Prime Minister, who was forced to resign in part for breaking the law, nominates his wife's friend for a peerage, and with it the right to vote on the laws of this country for the rest of his life. The 31-year-old then doesn't actually speak in Parliament, but one of his companies does start taking on clients, and one of his first clients is the guy who put him in the House of Lords. Who else has been given a seat in this place? This is Charlotte Owen. Last year, 29-year-old Owen was given a peerage and is now known as Baroness Owen of Alderley Edge. Why? Nobody really knows. She appeared on Boris Johnson's resignation honours list, having had a minor backroom role at Downing Street for a short period of time. A former Downing Street colleague told Tortoise Media that her appointment to the Lords was completely staggering. Her peerage is one of the most strange and hardest to explain because she was so extraordinarily junior. If you look at Baroness Owen's official House of Lords online profile and click on the section marked Experience, it says there is no experience information to show. Boris Johnson was forced out as an MP because he consistently and knowingly lied to Parliament. But he was still allowed to put someone in Parliament simply because it seems he rather liked her. This is Evgeny Lebedev. He's the son of a former KGB spy. His father has been sanctioned by Canada because of his continued proximity to the Putin regime. When Boris Johnson suggested giving Evgeny a seat in the Lords, the British Security Services raised concerns. The House of Lords Appointments Commission, which vets peerage appointments, advised Mr Johnson against giving Mr Lebedev a seat on security grounds, but Johnson did it anyway. So now, he's Lord Lebedev of Hampton and Siberia. And this is Sean Bailey. He's a former Conservative London mayoral candidate. Here he is at a now notorious lockdown-breaking party during COVID. The police issued 24 fines in connection with this illegal party. Bailey is, of course, a member of the House of Lords, courtesy of Johnson's resignation honours list. And this is Baroness Michelle Mone. She is the lingerie company owner who was given a peerage by David Cameron. Michelle Mone is also a liar. For years, she has consistently and brazenly lied to the British public about her involvement in a scheme to land a £200 million PPE contract during the pandemic. Her family made £60 million from the deal, even though the NHS says the gowns she sourced were unusable. The National Crime Agency is investigating Mone and her husband for alleged bribery, which they both deny. Right now, she's taking a voluntary leave of absence from the House of Lords. But she is still a baroness, and she can come back whenever she likes. From drugs policy to abortion to transport to foreign policy, she and all these people will be able to vote on UK legislation for the rest of their lives. But it's not just resignation honours that have debased the House of Lords. Since the Conservative Party came to power in 2010, miraculously, 9 Tory treasurers have been made members of the Lords, with all those appointed after 2014 having donated at least £3 million to the party. This might be a lucky coincidence, but the likelihood of that happening by chance is the equivalent of winning the National Lottery 12 times in a row. None of us voted for any of these people to have power over our lives, and none of us can vote them out. It's time to reform the House of Lords.